and welcome to the Board Game Design Cuppa. I am Matthew Dunstan, your host, as always, on the morning of the 21st of July, Wednesday, 21st of July, 2021. How is everyone doing on this fine Wednesday morning? It is sunny and quite pleasant here in Prague. Have moved to the usual game designer and a fern set within my apartment, so hopefully everything's going to be fine. Morning, Jay. How you going? Yeah. So, what's everyone been up to? If you missed it or didn't hear about it, I would recommend going back. Hey, Peter. How you going? Morning. I would recommend going and checking out Uli of Spielworks' stream yesterday. He interviewed Wolfgang Lütke, who is a game developer and has been working in the industry for many decades, was involved in Catan, being originally signed and things like that, and still an amazing work. Works for Cosmos now, and he's been our contact at Cosmos for many years, ever since we started, so basically a decade now. Anyway, really fascinating interview, and really like someone who's been in the industry for literally decades. So I would recommend going out and checking if you're not already following Uli Spielworks. If any mods are here, I can also find the Twitch. I'll try and find the link in a bit. Yeah, I didn't catch the whole thing. I sort of dropped in for bits and pieces, but I'm intending to go back and watch the whole thing through. But it's always really interesting, and Wolfgang's both extremely lovely, incredibly talented and experienced game developer, and kind of hearing those stories is great. Morning, Nicholas. How are you going? Welcome. Yeah, so that was a fun bit of fun sort of thing to be checking out. And yeah, but I guess the big thing, and for those who've been following me on Twitter, is that I have new games, which is quite exciting. So the Echo games from Ravensburger. So these are my latest design, which is a co-design with Dave Neal, arrived, or at least my German author copies arrived last week on Thursday or Friday. Yeah, and that's super cool. So I think that the stream is going to be a little bit about chatting about them. If anyone's got any questions, and discussing them, maybe kind of showing how they work. Yeah. So yeah, let's see how it goes. But also, if anyone else got any sort of questions or things they want to chat about, drop it in chat as always. There have been a few things going on Twitter, as always, that that are a little bit on my mind, and maybe we'll chat about that as a little bit as well. There's a bit going around about reviewers and content and that sort of thing, which I don't know whether I'll speak much to, because I guess ultimately I'm not really a reviewer. Oh, perfect! Thank you so much, Nicholas. So everyone in chat, this is the link, and really give Uli a follow if you're not already following him. I think he's doing a fantastic job, and I hopefully will be. At some point, I think I'm going to be on Uli's stream. Some point in the next few months, I think. I reached out and say whether he wanted to have me on. So that'll be a bit of fun. I'm also continuing to enjoy James Naylor's podcast, which I think I probably talked about on a previous week, I think. And I believe it's called Producing Fun. I feel like I've talked about it last week, so maybe I've just yes, Producing Fun. So I won't talk much more about that, but yeah, go out and check that podcast if you haven't already. The latest was a really great episode with David Digby, well-known solo game designer, and I've worked with David on Chocolate Factory, for example, and really fantastic guy, great designer, and yeah, really nice to see him appearing on that. Morning, Simon. Simon, I have to thank you because I missed it last week. And just thank you so much for the subscription. That's more than too kind. I of course welcome any support, but yeah, thank you so much. It's certainly don't anyone ever feel pressured, but it's a lovely thing. So thank you so much for that, Simon. Sorry for missing it last week. I obviously don't have any automatic things set up, so I only see my activity feed in a different window, and sometimes I check it a bit late. So but thank you again, and morning, Simon. Hope you are well. Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about echoes, because that's a bit more fun than yes. Oh, okay, that makes a little bit more sense. I don't check it all the thing, but no, that I know, but it's still you've chosen where to put it. So thank you so much for that. That's very kind of you. I guess the quick reminder to anybody: if you have Amazon Prime, you have a free subscription on Twitch. Not necessarily, I would not necessarily say give it to me, give it to somebody that you want or is trying to make a thing of it. But it's it's a free subscription. Hey Rory, how you going? Yeah, sounds like ready for some action. So anyway, this is Echoes. Some people will have seen me tweet out about it, but I'll sort of go over it a little bit. It's an audio mystery game. So you can see the back of the box here. It's a very simple game, and actually, it's quite a small box. I'll hold up a exit box for comparison, so you can actually see that they're quite svelte, quite diminutive. They are right now. I know the German ones are for sale at Thalia.de, which I think I put the link which is like a book that might one of the main bookstores in Germany. You can get it online, and I think in store, I'm sure. And these cost, I think, something like €10, something like that. I hope they're going to be in the US in Target. That was what was supposed to happen. I'm not sure if it actually has happened, but they're also supposed to be in the US, so that there will be English copies. And so in the game, it's quite simple. You get a kind of nice little rules sheet here. Like it's a fairly simple game, so it's not a massive rule set. This is kind of mainly pictures really, and so that's all the rules you need. And you also need an app, which I'll try and show on the stream. I'm not. If I'd been a bit more organized, I could have maybe found a way to hook my phone up to the stream. But the main thing that you get, in fact, the only component in the game, are these item cards. And at its heart, what you're trying to do, whoops, there's a sort of upside down, front side back, whatever. And each card is a different item. And the kind of the way the game works is that you are, I guess, mediums, something like that. You have special powers that basically when objects are brought to you, you can hear some memory that happened in that object's past, like that was happening around that object or while that object was being used in the past. And the idea is that with this collection of objects, they all relate to a particular story, and you need to listen to those memories to piece together the story. And the actual task in the game is that you have to put these 24 items in a set order, in how which corresponds to the proper passage of the story effectively. And once you figure that out, you've won. You've figured out the story. And the way you do it is that it's fairly straightforward. You have a card, say this sort of pound notes and some pence. You have an app, and the interesting thing actually is I can play with the German copy because there's an English app and the pictures are the same. So it's going to be very sort of dodgy, me sort of holding up. So this is the Echoes app, and you select which box you're doing. This is the dancer, for example. And so you have there's a short prologue, and I'll try and play a little bit of that. Oh, you can hear some very nice music. Hopefully people can hear that. And then if I hit play.
Harry Fincher and his wife Claire had always dreamed of a home in the Scottish countryside, and Chol House was perfect for them. The previous owner boarded it up in 1928, and the place had been left undisturbed for over 80 years. The house still contained some of the previous owner's possessions, most of which Harry threw away. But he kept some of the more interesting items, including a small figure of a ballet dancer, apparently taken from a music box. Shortly after they moved into Chol House, Harry and Claire began hearing strange sounds at night, banging and tapping, often from the room where Harry found the dancer. Once, Harry heard music, and he got out of bed to look for the source. In the moonlight filtering through the thick glass panes of the windows, he thought he saw a girl at the foot of the stairs. He blinked, and she was gone. The Finches were terrified that their home was haunted, so they asked the locals if anything tragic had ever happened at Troll House. They learned that the death of a girl named Esther Borland was linked to the house, and that no one really knew the true events that led to her death. Harry realizes the girl he saw must be Esther. He and Claire find Esther's grave in the cemetery, and notice it is topped with a small stone dancer. Desperate to lay Esther's ghost to rest, the Finches contact you for help, and they gather together everything that may have belonged to the previous owner. They want you to use your powers to discover the events surrounding Esther's death and learn why she is still clinging to this world.
So there you go. That's the prologue. I don't know if I'd really planned that. I was just going to play it all out, but you can hear. I mean, I think they've done an amazing job with the sound design. And so then you have an app screen, which is a bit hard to see, but you have sort of listen and solve, and it uses the camera of your phone. So I'm going to try and see if I put. You can see if I put the card behind it, it automatically detects. If you look at this circle here, you see it's blank now, and if I put the card behind it, once it's in the camera, it will automatically detect the card. And then you can basically click on that item.
Thank you, Esther, for paying for today's lesson. Come in.
So there you go. That's the kind of like the audio memory around this object, basically. So yeah, I mean, that's how the game works fundamentally. So you can do that in any order for all the cards. And then the way you solve the game is it's a little bit easier than necessarily putting 24 cards in order, because that's a bit hard. You have 6 cards which are on sort of thicker cardboard. So just to kind of compare, like this is I don't know if you can really see, but like this is the thicker card and this is just a normal quite thin card. You have 6 of these, and they're always, they head a chapter. So there are 6 chapters, and each of these thicker cards is the first card in each of those chapters. And each chapter is always this card followed by 3 regular cards, but you don't know which 3 they are. And so what the other thing the app does is it's how you solve. So you would sort of hit the little, so you can see solve up there is the other option. And what you'll do is you'll do the same thing. You'll scan the cards. So that's like number 1, for example, and then I'll scan like number 2. Maybe that's going to come up with number 2. Did that come up with number 2? Oh, maybe it didn't. Oh, I have to click it. Sorry. So it'll like see 1, and then I'll hit. So that's like my first guess. This is like the second card. So this is the third card. Ooh. And the dancer itself, maybe. Okay, so once you've got the 4 up, then the app will tell you whether you're correct or not for that chapter. So in this case, the chapter is incorrect, and it'll also give you some more information. It says none of the cards belong to this chapter. So then you've actually got a little bit more information. There's an even easier mode. There's a couple of extra things. There's an easier mode that you can get even more information about the cards you use in a guess. And what the app can tell you even more than it does. The easier version, it'll tell you which card is possibly in the chapter. Whereas in this, if say you had one of the cards was correct, it would just say you have 1 card correct of this chapter, but it doesn't tell you which one. So there's like a little bit of deduction there. I was inspired a bit by Return of the Obra Dinn, which has a somewhat similar kind of deductive system, which is cool. The other thing that is not really to do with the app, but there is a kind of you can have a slightly easier way, which is the way that they recommend in the rules, I think. But basically, the cards, some of the cards have this little symbol there, that kind of diamond symbol. Half of them do. And what they recommend is that you get the 9 cards, which have that diamond symbol, and only start with those. And what you know is that those diamond cards, they belong to only 3 of the chapters. So those are 9 cards and they're in 3 chapters. But you don't know which of the 6 which 3 of the 6 chapter heads they belong to. So basically it just cuts the problem in half a little bit. It can be a little bit overwhelming when you have all of the cards because, you know, obviously there's a lot more possibilities. So that's one way to make it even a little bit easier to kind of get you into it. But at the same time, it's completely playable without using that system. So I'd say when if you do try it, you can choose how you want to play. If you want the kind of like very like a bit more difficult, a lot more combinations, you can choose just to have all the cards and not look at the diamonds, for example. Yeah, and that's basically the game. And once you have a correct chapter and it says you've got all the cards correct, you can put that chapter to the side. Eventually, you'll solve all 6 chapters, and then the very final step. I should say, actually, the other thing, which I won't spoil in this, is that when you get a chapter correct, what you'll hear then is you'll hear a complete audio track of that chapter part, which is like 1/6 of the story. And often you'll hear extra things that happened in between the items. So you don't necessarily hear like everything. It's not like item 1 has the soundtrack and then it cuts off and then item 2 starts exactly where, you know, item 1 ended. No, sometimes there's actually a gap between it and there's extra sounds that that you'll hear only once you've got the chapter correct. And then you hear this thing and you'll hear new context. You'll hear like some extra little bit of dialogue. Sometimes that might give you clues for other parts. Sometimes the images also on the cards can give you some clues. And once you have all the chapters correct, the very last task is to put the 6 chapters in order, because of course they could, you know, you have to work that out. Once you do that, you've won, you've finished, and you'll hear, you'll get an audio epilogue, much like the prologue. And that's it. Nicholas asks, can you re-listen to what you've got so far at any time? I believe you can. I haven't actually. I mean, you can listen to any of the cards at any time. That the app just works. I think if you've solved a chapter, what you can do is if you scan the chapter header, it gives you the full chapter because you've already solved it. That's what I believe. I would check on that though. I haven't necessarily put it completely through its paces yet, I guess is the point. Yeah, no, sorry. Thanks also, Nicholas, for the link to the game, to Talia. Yeah, and the voice acting is really, really good. No, they've done a really fantastic job. I'm not a German speaker, so if anyone's listening, the German one, Nicola, I'm not sure if you're listening to the German one. I think they've also done a good job there. So yeah, and Peter says, what I really like about Echoes in the app is no need for QR codes. You just scan the card and it works. When playing Destinies, the QR codes somehow break the atmosphere. Yeah, no, it's interesting actually, because when we initially pitched the game to Ravensburger, so I was actually inspired. The other main inspiration for the game was a concept called Museum in a Box, which is based from the UK. It's not a game. Basically, they make small like Raspberry Pis inside a physical box, and the idea is that you put these NFC chips or things like in small recreated objects from museums. So the idea is that, say you have like sculptures in a museum, they would make these small recreations of those sculptures, like little figures, and you would take a figure and put it on the box and it would recognize that figure automatically, and then it would play a sound. It would either play a track to tell you some information about the object or some context or some story. And the idea was that they used it as a way to kind of break down barriers when exploring a collection. There was something playful about taking an object, putting it on the box and hearing something sort of magical about that and interactive. And I really loved that idea. And actually the original idea that I kind of wanted was to have the same thing, that you would put the phone under the box, and maybe the box would look a little bit more like a kind of mystical, like scrying sort of thing. And that the cards would actually have NFC technology in them, so that they would be automatically recognized just by proximity. They wouldn't have to be scanned at all. And they did look into that for a little while. They were interested in that, but it turned out that for whatever reason, that this the way they've done the app was the way they went. But I think something that was always part of the kind of thinking was to try and make it as seamless as possible and to try and make it natural and to have that kind of magic. Because also, the great thing, sort of interesting thing about an audio game is that it's in some ways more easily shared. You kind of creating this sound in this shared space, and everybody can see it. Like you don't have to see anything. There's no reading. It's you get to everyone gets to everyone gets to experience it in the same way. So I think that's also something. I think sound is a very underutilized thing in games. I mean, obviously, it needs an app normally to do that, but there is something kind of magical about it, and also very easily shared and things like that, and very smooth. So yeah, I actually, this is, I mean, only once I got the games did I download the app. The app hadn't been out for that long before that, and they yeah, I think they've done a fantastic job, and it seems very smooth. I've played it played around with it quite a bit. Recognizes the cards very easily. It's very easily for you to select it and say what you want. So no, I mean, I'm a huge fan, and I like that they've, I mean, I'm not saying it's this amazing ecological project, but I do like that they've basically, the box is exactly the size it needs to be. I'm not sure if you can see that, the cards basically fit exactly in the box. It's exactly as big as it needs to be. I like that. I like that it, and it's obviously completely shareable. Once you play the story, then the story. You can only play it once, but it's easy to, hand it off to somebody else. So yeah, I'm hopeful, I guess. Who knows how it'll be received? But yeah, it's definitely, it's gonna be in the US. It's gonna be English speaking market, German speaking. There'll be French early next year, I think. We're already working on the next couple of scenarios as well. And there'll also be a short demo scenario, which will just be 2 chapters for stores to kind of show it off to people. Yeah, so I mean that's kind of echoes. So you've got the dancer, which is this kind of like death in a Scottish house, kind of mid-20s, 1920s, 1930s, something like that. The cocktail, which is actually also kind of 20s, 30s prohibition in New York, all about sort of like mob bosses and things like that. Has some really like cool, just trying to show some like old kind of like old sort of maps, and like you got like we're in a bar and things like that. And I think they've done a really good job with the kind of illustrations and things like that as well. So that's the cocktail, kind of like a mob boss kind of thing, prohibition, New York, 1920s. And then finally, maybe much more different, is the microchip, which is about like apocalypse has happened, and this is looking back and trying to work out how did apocalypse kind of happen, what all went wrong. So it's set very much in the future. So there's a lot of quite kind of futuristic kind of things going on, which is also quite cool. I think that probably the story that we had the most had to go through the most iterations, but I think it's ended up in a really, really cool place. Peter asked, did you write the stories or did the publisher develop it? No, we wrote the stories. So we initially pitched the game as just a sort of a demo scenario that actually isn't any of these 3. It was a bit shorter, maybe. I think it was probably 12 or 16 cards. I actually got some friends in the lab to record sounds of them, speaking the dialogue and things like that. And it was just played with sound files. So, it would be card 1, play sound file 1, on your computer or something like that. There was no app. And once they were happy with that, then we got to work on the thing. So yeah, we write the stories, we put in all the sound direction, like these are the sounds we should hear, this is the order we should hear them, this is the kind of emotion, if in the voice, or not quite to that point, but we don't give like the voice acting directions, but we give the dialogue certainly, and maybe we make notes about what the illustrations need to be, what the objects are, maybe really key points that you need to make sure that this is how it is in the sound, because that's important for the kind of logic for the puzzle of it. Yeah, and obviously we go back and forth with Ravensburger. So we send them off drafts. They'll have a look early on as they go, like, oh, this is good or not. And then they'll do a lot of playtesting. And actually, really, Ravensburger does a lot of the playtesting for us. Obviously, the difficulty with this is it's hard to test before you have the sounds. So they will work with the sound studio to make some prototype sounds, and they'll test with their audiences. So actually, yeah, it's a very much it's an iterative process, but it's also very collaborative with Ravensburger from a very early point. And that's really important because you kind of need, it's hard to test the game without the sounds, and you also need the sounds to be of a certain level even from the start to see whether they're even effective or not. and Ravensburger really helps with that. And I mean, in the end, it was kind of this perfect. Ravensburger weren't actually the first publisher that we approached, although they were pretty close to the first. And it actually turned out that it was a really good fit because they already work with sound studios for some of their other products already. You know, not a lot of game studios necessarily are used to recording sounds, having voice actors, things like that. And actually Ravensburger already were kind of set up for that. So, you know, it's a lot of work, but they kind of know how to do it already. And that's quite, was quite advantageous. And actually they turned it all around really quickly. So we showed the game to them in Essen in 2019. They said yes. So when I met up with Andrea and Mac at Nuremberg in 2020, which was literally the last convention I went to before the pandemic, sort of January 2020, they said, yep, we're going to do it. And we got to work. And this is, you know, July. So, you know, about 18 months later from them saying, yes, we're going to do it, the boxes have appeared, which is actually a really fast turnaround when you think about it. And not just one box, like 3 boxes, like 3 scenarios is a lot of work. So yeah, it's been a fantastic, you know, it's been a really great experience. It's great to work with Ravensburger, certainly. And now, you know, it's just to see how it goes. I mean, you know, we always respected Ravensburger from the outside in that it seems that they really support their games really well, and they kind of commit to them for quite a while. They don't tend to sort of like release something and then forget about it in a week or something. Like they really try and see it as a longer term thing. So let's see how this goes, and also like when it's available a bit more widely. So from sort of September, it's like there's an exclusivity deal with Thalia and supposedly an exclusivity deal with Target for like 2 or 3 months, and then from September they'll be, you know, kind of available everywhere. So probably more people will get to play it. You know, Essen, it'll hopefully be available. So yeah, we'll kind of see how it goes. Like, you know, tentatively, like fingers crossed, it's all going to be okay, and it could be, you know, reasonably successful, or, you know, at least find a bit of an audience. I think it really is a bit different, which is good. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. We shall see how it goes. Yeah, so that is Echoes. Yeah, so yeah, if you can get them from Thalia, do so. I mean, you can play them as I do, like with the German copy with an English app if you really can't wait. But the English versions are coming, if not already in the US, and it'll be a bit longer for Europe, I guess. But they will eventually make their way. Yeah. So I'm just checking to see. I skipped over something from Peter. Was talking about going back to the kind of reviewer stuff. To the reviewer guide here in Czechia, some publishers, even for the biggest outlets here, are trying a new strategy of selling reviewers their games with a small discount. Oh, interesting. I mean, I think the argument, you know, in some of this other things is that even, you know, like getting the game for free is like too much and all this sort of thing. So giving it a discount, I'd say, is even less of a problem. You know, plenty of people get things at a discount. Jay says, definitely think there is an audience for Echoes. Yeah, no, yeah, thanks. I hope so too. I mean, I think it definitely fits in the kind of like escape room narrative genre, but I guess the nice thing is that there really isn't many rules. I mean, we really tried to make it as simple to understand what the task you're trying to do. So you can just experience the kind of narrative and the sounds as much as possible. There's not a lot of rules to kind of like understand or phases or anything like that. It's just very direct. And I think I am actually really happy with that. I think it's barring this one other game, which has been signed to Space Cowboys and maybe released next year or the year after, which is also a narrative game with Dave. I think this is like in my top 2 of like the most kind of like, yeah, approachable, as Jay said, like the most approachable kind of straightforward game I've ever made. And I think I realize the value of that more and more and more. Like, I think having games, you know, I was looking at Phil Walker Harding's has made this recent Super Happy Fun Time or whatever it's called, like the kind of flip and write from Game Right that just got announced. That's just like numbers and you're crossing them off in a 3x3 grid. Everyone likes a 3x3 grid. And, you know, again, just the kind of simplicity of that and the beauty of that, I am really more and more intrigued by making games that have, you know, that like no barrier in terms of rules, or very, very, very small barrier. So yeah, so it's nice to kind of, when you achieve it, it's a nice thing to do. But yeah, it's sort of interesting also that these come out, and this last week I've been working a lot in terms of actually working. I've been working a lot on the Hitman game, which if people go back into old streams, I showed off another kind of action narrative game, kind of roughly based around Hitman, but it's not going to be licensed or anything like that. And so Dave and I are currently working on a new scenario for it. A publisher, we'd shown it to a publisher, they were somewhat interested, but there were some problems, so we're trying to address those, trying to kind of rework it, trying to make it bigger and more stuff going on. So it's been interesting to go from talking about Echo as this kind of very simple thing to something that's quite a bit more involved, a lot more that the app is kind of trying to handle, which presents kind of new challenges when you're designing, because it's I'm not coding the app while I design, but you're like, the app needs to do this. So it's this sort of thing where you write a description of what the app is going to do, but it's still a bit imprecise because you don't know the full kind of capabilities of what the app's going to be tracking and things like that. Or you haven't kind of processed it in your mind. You kind of know what you want it to do, but so it's a funny kind of hybrid way of designing, I guess. There's with a bit of uncertainty, because obviously when you make a tabletop game and there's no app or anything, well, you have to know exactly how things work. You have to say exactly how these cards work together. How do I put these new components out, et cetera, et cetera. But when you have an app, it gets a bit fuzzy, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's the kind of the main news. Peter also said something about NFC. NFC chips are amazing, could be a big thing in gaming, but cheap phones don't have NFCs, and iPhones don't let you use it like Android phones do. Yeah, I suspect that is something to do with it. And we had to say, it's sort of funny. When we were making the prototype for this game, I actually tried to buy some. I did buy some NFC chips, and I even got an old Android phone to try and get it to work. But even getting that to work as a prototype was really difficult. So I think there's still some. Yeah, it doesn't seem as universal yet as like cameras in phones, which seem to be obviously a little bit more reliable and things like that. So yeah, we shall see what we shall see. I don't have any really new reviews. Well, as Peter knows, I played some new games on Monday evening at the Game Cafe. I played Pan Am for the first time, which is a Prospero Hall design from Funko Games. It's an interesting game. I did enjoy the play of it. I think in some ways it is kind of quite streamlined, but it's not streamlined to the point that it's completely, approachable. There are still rules. It's an interesting hybrid. I think for people who play a lot of games like myself and like trying lots of things, it is quite a breath of fresh air. It's very direct. It's very, it gets going, and it's akin to some of these sort of more classic Euros. There were some comparisons like Airlines Europe from Alan Moon, or even Ticket to Ride. And there is this economic engine in the game, which is sort of interesting to interact with. You're trying to make an idea. You have to buy shares as the game going on, and normally the price of shares just goes up, and whoever has the most shares wins. So you normally want to spend as much money at each point to get the most shares, because you're just only going to be worth less later on. And yeah, I was quite impressed. I'm impressed by the design, not only like the game design, but also like the graphic design and product design. I wonder in the end whether it will find it's a weird audience to fit into. I would say it's a little too complex for a family, but there's not that much going on for like a really heavy strategic game. So yeah, it's a funny one, I guess. Oh, Jay says, by the way, I got Spy Connection. I really like it. Thank you so much. Well, thanks. Well, thank you for letting me know, and thank you for getting it. Thanks for the support. Yeah, I'm glad. I haven't. I sent a bit of a. I sent an email to Pegasus, sort of just saying, I haven't really heard, like, normally you see, I don't know, the publisher tweeting out things or reviews, but I haven't really seen any reviews of the game. And I was sort of saying, like, are you doing anything? Like, I mean, and I expect there may be German stuff that I've missed because I'm not kind of in the German gaming scene. But I thought that it had got the US, but actually I think the US release date is like this week, actually. So anyone in the US, I don't think anyone is the US in the audience currently, but Spy Connection should be available in the US this week, and they said they've planned a few events or giveaways or something. So hopefully there'll be a little bit of buzz around the game, or a little bit of anything, because again, as we sort of talk about the games, kind of, it's already been a few months, and it feels like the game has just completely disappeared, sadly. But hopefully, hopefully it will. I hope, like for example, I hope the main reviewers will get a copy. I hope the Dice Tower and other folks like that would get to play it. But let's see what happens in the English speaking world. So fingers crossed. But thank you very much, Jay. Thank you for picking it up and such kind words. I'm really glad you enjoy it. Yeah. So I'm just trying to think. I'm looking to my shelves, see if there's any other sort of news on the game side. No, I'm just sort of. I'm probably going to finally get around to update. Well, to write some copy for a new website. That's one thing which I have a slight lull in responsibilities in terms of working on new things or working on things for publishers. So I feel like I should probably catch up on some of these tasks which are a little less glamorous, a little less interesting, but need to be done nonetheless, like having a decent website. So I'm going to probably be working on that soon. And yeah, otherwise just trying to, I guess, enjoy summer in a bit of a weird way. It's I've talked about it before, but once your hobby, i.e. game designing, becomes your job, you realize that you don't really have any hobbies anymore and you need something else to kind of relax with, and that's not the thing you're doing in most of the day. So yeah, I'm probably consciously trying to like take a bit of a break, even though we're not probably going for any holidays. But yeah, just trying to actually, just take a break. Not that things are that bad. I can't really complain at all, but I think that's important. I think it's important to kind of refresh. Jeff Allers had a great design diary about Hashi that appeared on Board Game Geek the other day, and he talked about that the design for that game really came for when he took a break, when he had to do this course in Berlin for a few weeks or a month or so. And it was when you're in this new environment and, stepping away from saying, I'm not going to do any game design. That's sometimes when you cultivate all these new ideas. And I think I need a little bit of that time, fertile time, to sort of think about new things and things like that. I have a few trivia game things. The other thing a bit of a shout out. Have people ever seen Big Potato announced a new game, and this is by actually one of my mentees, Ed Najokas. I'm sorry, Ed, if I'm completely screwing up your name. Called What's Next, and I'll drop it into the chat for people to have a look. It's kind of like another narrative game, narrative / kind of escape room game, but a kind of a social party style of that game in the kind of natural Big Potato style. I think it looks super interesting. I'm really interested to try it. And Ed is a really, really interesting guy. He has a background in kind of escape room design, in fine arts, and in game design generally. Again, I'm always interested in people who come into games from a kind of a different background, and I think Ed does. I really enjoyed mentoring him. I mean, I don't know if I really taught him much, I think, but it was really interesting. And we might even, I'd like to actually try and design something with Ed. And we tried to work on something afterwards. And actually, I just said I didn't really have time, but I'd like to come back to that. And I've actually been thinking, I don't know why I saw the Big Potato stuff and I started looking at all the Big Potato stuff. They've got also a new game, Snakes, which is actually by Phil Walker Harding. I'm pretty sure it's by Phil. I think it's by Phil, which apparently is already sold out, but maybe it's sold out because it's just being released now. Oops, no, I don't want the video. Yeah, which also looks super cool, but it made me think about trivia games generally, and I've got a few ideas sort of rattling around, but I'm not really in that space at all, and it's something I might chat to Ed a little bit about. I'd love to sit down with like someone like Big Potato and sort of hear like what they're looking for, what really makes a great trivia game. I love what they do. I think they're an amazing company. But yeah, it would be kind of cool to. I've got a few, like over the years, I've kind of accumulated a few kind of trivia based kind of game things. But yeah, it would be interesting to kind of see what's going on there. Yeah, but that's kind of where we're at. I actually just had an idea. Actually, there's an old game that we've been trying to pitch to various publishers might be a good fit for Big Potato. So yeah, I will see how that goes. Oh, Simon says tried to sign the game at Alleycat. Oh, okay, yeah, this peril mechanic. Yeah, you're kind of like as things get worse, or you're building up this kind of dexterity puzzle, almost like not Jenga really. You're building something up, and if anything knocks down, you kind of lose. Yeah. No, it is really cool, and of course, like Big Potato, I think, yeah, as I said, just does an amazing job. I love their like graphic design, product design is just again just really amazing, different from anything else in the space, I think, which is really super cool. Yeah. Anyway, I think today's going to be a slightly shorter stream. I've got another meeting at 11 that I actually need to prepare a little bit for. So I might be cutting this one a little bit short today. Sorry to everyone for that. But hopefully it's been short and sweet and interesting. If anyone has any suggestions who we can go and raid, do let me know, because actually in my followers list doesn't seem to really be anybody at the moment who's on. But yeah, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, rest of the week. I hope everyone's well and safe wherever you are. Enjoy some games or game design if you get a chance. But yeah, I'll be back next week, I expect. I don't think there's any reason that I wouldn't be. And yeah, until then, I think yeah, maybe we'll just leave the raid for today. But yeah, have a great week, everybody. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks for your support as always. And yeah, I'll catch you all next week. Great. Thanks, everyone. Bye.